I'm WTOP Capitol Hill correspondent Mitchell Miller, and welcome to the Road to Responsible AI, sponsored by Leidos on WTOP.com. And we're fortunate to be joined today by Ron Keesing, the Chief AI Officer at Leidos. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Mitchell. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, before we dive into AI, which has so many facets to it, I wonder if you could just talk to us a little bit about Leidos and how the company got involved with artificial intelligence.
Sure. Well, first of all, Leidos has been building AI solutions for the U.S. government for a very long time. Going back about 20 years, for example, we were part of the first DARPA Grand Challenge, building the generation of autonomous vehicles that influences the autonomy everyone sees today with self-driving cars. In the 2010s, we built the first generation of autonomous vessels for the U.S. Navy. And in general, we look to apply AI across many of the government's most important missions and vexing challenges, because a lot of the work we do for the federal government involves processing massive amounts of data, whether it's operating some of the largest networks. We operate the third largest information network on the planet for the DoD, whether it's modernizing health record systems, as we do for DoD as well, and delivering care as we do for the VA, or whether it's in our work managing the air traffic control systems on behalf of the FAA. All of these involve massive amounts of data, and there are great opportunities to apply AI to help make things better.
And a lot of people in general, just the general public, are really starting to come on board to really understand what AI is. Many of them, we were talking about the fact that they didn't really know what it was until recently.
Yeah, it's been really remarkable. The experience a lot of members of the public have had interacting with tools like ChatGPT, really the first time that people have had a hands-on experience with AI, and is really enlightening. It's at times a little terrifying to see how powerful this technology can be, but also really exciting to see all the different ways it can apply to different work we do.
And related to the public's interest, there's of course the congressional interest. Sure. And we recently talked to Virginia Congressman Don Beyer about many of these issues that are very complicated, but also can be opened up by discussion of these issues. And one of them is the fact that a lot of lawmakers have expressed concern about data sources, where the information is coming. And I wonder, without the regulations in place today, how is your company dealing with these type of issues?
Sure. Well, the first thing I'd note is, as a company that's been building AI for a long time, we've always harped on the centrality of trust, that humans actually trust the AI and what it does. As an example, many people have interacted with our systems when they've gone through airports and they walk through one of the security checkpoint systems that helps determine whether individuals are carrying forbidden objects onto planes, like a weapon or explosive materials. Now, in a mission like that, trust is important, and you need to consider all the perspectives of trust. The FAA leadership has to trust that we're going to help them fulfill their mission and responsibilities. TSA agents on the ground have to trust that the system is actually finding what they need to find. And the flying public has got to trust that the system is both keeping them safe and treating them fairly. So we've been at this for a long time, thinking about how do you build systems. And back to your question about data, building a system like that means we have to actually collect a lot of data, be very careful in the way we triage that data and make sure it's accurate and make sure that it is well functioning. And then we work with the federal government, who test that independently and make sure that the systems we're building actually perform in the way that they need to keep the flying public safe. So I'd say from this data perspective, as a company that's been doing this for a long time, there are ways to do it. It can be expensive, and so one of the things we also focus on is how do you figure out the right level of data quality depending on the level of AI risk that you're doing. In a mission like keeping the flying public safe, you've got to have really high quality data. If you're doing something like trying to predict IT outages in a data center, maybe you don't need to invest as much in data and testing. You just see if it works well for you.
Right, and one of the other things that has been brought up recently, and for many years actually, is transparency. A lot of members of Congress have mentioned this. When I talked to Congressman Beyer, he talked about this. The fact that some people are just concerned that they don't really know, quote unquote, how these things work. Obviously, you've been involved with this for a long time, so you do know how they work. But how do you balance that with what the public concerns are, congressional concerns are, and then how you actually carry it out?
Sure, it's a great point. And this issue about transparency is really important. I think we all want to understand how AI works and how it actually operates as much as is possible. And those of us who build it want to do that as well. It's particularly important, and again, this gets to kind of what kind of AI use cases are we really talking about? If we're doing something that's, for example, rights impacting or safety impacting, it's really important that we build levels of transparency and accountability and auditability into the way that our AI systems work, so that if something goes wrong, we can actually trace it back and make sure it doesn't happen again. That's very possible for certain kinds of AI. But let's go back to that example of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is so complex, it's got literally hundreds of billions to trillions of parameters that determine what the model does. It's so complex that asking ChatGPT how it comes up with the next word it's going to use is about like asking me why I had breakfast this morning. I can give you an explanation, but the truth is it's not really going to get to the part of how my brain really decided to have cereal this morning. So when you think about it that way, you realize, okay, well, so we shouldn't expect too much from those models and how explainable they're going to be to us once they start to approach the complexity of our brains. What we should expect are ways to pre-treat some of the ways those models behave by feeding them some data that we know we can trust and they can use. And there are kind of techniques we're building up like that to make generative AI models like ChatGPT more reliable. One of the other things we should do is be very careful about using technology like that in cases that are rights impacting or safety impacting, because I just don't think it's ready, and I don't think we know yet how to trace back when something does go wrong, what the real cause was, and prevent it from happening again.
And another issue that has been brought up is privacy. A lot of people have concerns about that. Congressman Beyer has indicated that, at least in his view, maybe the European Union went a little too hard on trying to protect it, and that the balance was a little bit out of whack. He has used the term a soft touch to deal with regulatory affairs. How do you look at that issue?
It's a really interesting and tricky one to get right. I'll start first as a private citizen. As a private citizen, there are lots of things I'd like to have about data and privacy. For example, I would like data minimization. I'd like to make sure that organizations aren't holding my data unless they have a really legitimate purpose to do so. I might like the idea to know about how they are using my data. I might like to know exactly the details of what data they hold about me and what it says. I might even want the ability to have them have to edit my data if I want, or even forget my data. And all that sounds really attractive as a private citizen. Now, when you get into the world of AI, things get a lot more complex, because that same data that I might want forgotten might have been used in building a large language model, and retraining that model because I want my data forgotten could involve an enormously expensive set of training investments, and in fact, as people are learning, also an enormous amount of energy consumption to retrain a model like that. So it's important as we think about this, we figure out, and the government kind of takes the right, appropriate, and balanced approach, how to do this in a manner that's practical while still representing the desires we all have as citizens. I think the other real challenge we're seeing as an enterprise is right now we're seeing a patchwork of legislation arise across the states. And that's a real regulatory burden for any company like Leidos that operates across the entire geographic area of the United States. We have to figure out how to operate under potentially dozens of different privacy regimes, which is just not tenable. So we would love to see the federal government take action here and provide some leadership and kind of uniform standards around data privacy that apply everywhere. I think that'll be to everyone's benefit and really free up a level of innovation that's hard to do today when everyone's playing by their own rules.
Right, and related to those rules, Congressman Beyer has indicated he has some optimism about the fact that, while Congress has at times struggled with various issues, as you know, in connection with big tech, that he feels like lawmakers are starting to lean into this issue, and he's actually optimistic about the future. I wonder what your view is as we look forward.
Sure. Well, I'm really optimistic too, but I think it's essential that we conceive of the way we build AI solutions in the right way. AI solutions work best, and I mentioned the centrality of trust, when they're built as partnerships between people and AI. That's because humans naturally develop a level of trust when they understand how the AI works and when it helps make their life better. Let me give you an example of something that's a little surprising about a human-AI partnership we've built at Leidos. So one of the things it turns out AI is really great at doing is helping people write computer code. What's interesting is when you pair humans and machines together to do this, you might think, well, the AI just starts writing the code for the humans. What you actually find is the humans do more coding when they've got an AI partner next to them. They spend more time coding, but they spend less time on the parts of the job that they hated before, like commenting their code and writing unit tests. And they're actually much happier and more productive, about 40% more productive, when they've got this AI partner helping them do their work. But we're not talking about, well, let's get rid of all those developers. We're talking about, now that we're more productive, how can we write better quality code? How can we write code that actually addresses a lot of tech debt that we have? And these are really exciting opportunities for us. The other thing we see is we see junior developers able to contribute more. And that issue excites me a lot, because I think everybody who looks at the demographics knows we as a nation are challenged to have enough people with the right STEM backgrounds to do all the work we have ahead of us. And one of the things AI can do as a partner to humans potentially is lower the barrier to actually being able to participate in building out all these future solutions. So I'm really optimistic as well, if we can frame AI as a human-machine partnership on all we can do.
Well, we certainly have a lot to look forward to. Appreciate our discussion, and we will leave it there with a lot more to come. So thank you very much. I'm WTOP Capitol Hill correspondent Mitchell Miller, and I'd like to thank Ron Keesing, the Chief AI Officer at Leidos. And thank you for taking part in the Road to Responsible AI, sponsored by Leidos on WTOP.com.